So no doubt you guys have seen the post that come out from TVNZ, and it's now getting shared across Facebook and everything, and it's put quite a bit of a stir in the community. So it's about time that I put up a video and I address a few issues and I share my point of view on the situation. We're all entitled to our own opinion and stuff, but there's a few things that we must iron out, especially if there's an anti-campaign against vaping and some kind of movement and stuff. I'm going to share a few things. We're going to look at the actual post or the video that came out or whatever came out across the news outlets and everything like that, and I'm just going to share my experience with our local high school more towards the end of the video, and I might plug a few things in between. So first, to get it started, let's see what happened.
The distinctive smell of dragon's brain, unicorn dust and cupcake kisses.
The flavours and the marketing are very much directed at youth.
Oh, Letitia. So here we go again. She's on the campaign again. So they're directing the first shots. Bang, bang, bang. They're popping off at marketing. They're popping off at packaging. They're popping off at flavors and stuff. Now, the key thing when it comes to vaping is that there's so many ways that you can customize your experience and stuff, and that's why it's working for people. You can't say that adults don't enjoy flavors. I like custards, I like fruits, I like candies, I like everything like that. Almost every single person I talk to that comes in and sees us is exactly the same. They're exactly the same. We all love flavors in that. You can't say that because adults like flavors or that for some reason we don't like flavors or we're not allowed to, that it's definitely directed at youth. Now, they're going on about a few things in this whole kind of scenario. You know, they're talking about like packaging and stuff like that. Now this right here is another array of issues when we're looking at the whole entire video, which is probably about a minute and a half, let's just say about a minute and a half in the video. They're mixing in so much things in one kind of section that it's just really confusing the whole bubble. Now, I do think that it is the vendor's responsibility to kind of package their product in some type of ethical way. You know, it's really up to them. Who the fuck am I to tell them what they're supposed to do with their business? But there's some kind of, you'd say like an unwritten rule in the way that you should package your products. Now, my big thing when it comes to packaging, this is my personal opinion. Everyone out there, you are absolutely entitled to your own personal opinion. My personal opinion, it definitely has to have warning labels and stuff. That's just a given. I mean, people might want to read that kind of stuff. Half the people just throw it away. But my big thing is if it can get confused with confectionery. So if it's looking like M&Ms, if it's looking like Snickers bars, if it's looking like Moros and stuff, something that would be more familiar to a child if they picked it up as such, to me that's just a no-brainer. I've got no room for that, and I'll call anybody out on that if they're selling or if they have anything that's can be confused as some kind of confectionery stuff that you see as lollies in the dairy and that. Then I'm going to say my piece, and you know, rightfully I should. I'm entitled to my own opinion and stuff. But saying that it's directly marketed at youth, you know, it's because there's flavors and stuff. This is absolute bollocks. And you know, she knows it herself. She's just using it as fire ammo as she's ramping up her campaign against vaping and taking pieces from what's going on overseas, flavor bans, etc. This stuff steamrolls out and it folds over to other countries. So we really need to look at what's going on overseas, you know, to get a feel about what people would use as ammo against our own country.
And now the number of 14 and 15-year-olds in New Zealand trying e-cigarettes is rising fast. In 2007, just 7% of Year 10s had tried e-cigarettes. That jumped to 20% in 2014, while the most recent data show it's risen again to 28% in 2016.
Holy moly donut shop. Okay, now they're going into the whole aspect about teens vaping and stuff. I mean, there's a lot that we gotta talk about in this area and stuff. So, over on the AVCA public forum, the group page where we all kind of communicate and stuff, I always have links down in the description. Please go and join the Facebook group, get amongst and stuff. This post absolutely exploded. I believe right here that this is kind of like the meat and veg of what this post is about. You know, they're talking about flavors, all that other stuff. This is where they're trying to hit homes. Now, when it comes to figures and stuff, if you're going to put accusations out there, you have to have something to back it up. So they talk about the 28% in 2016. So they got a group together of 2,700 students, Year 10 students, I believe. Now, I'm going to slam everything when it comes to these kinds of stats, research, anything like that, I'm going to put it all down in the description, and I really do encourage everybody to go do your own kind of research and reading up when it comes to these types of things. Now, at any point, just hit down your comments down in the description, share your point of view. It's all about that. We're all entitled to our own opinions and stuff. Now, they go back to 2007 and 2016, and from the way that they're talking about it, there's a massive increase. Now, we're going to get back into this a bit later when I talk about my experience when I went down and I visited the deputy principal of the high school, who I believe now is the principal. So they said 28% in 2016. They did 2,700 students. They did a bit of a study or a collection or a survey, whatever you call it. But they go back to figures back in 2007. Question is, where did they get the paperwork from 2007? So I asked a question. I put it out in some of the threads that we're banging over on the AVCA public forum. You know, what's kind of going on with this? There is no real research that talks about figures, or there's no surveys that's been done from 2007. The one that was done in New Zealand was done in 2016. So if there was anything that was done prior to that, they're getting stats from other countries. So how can you really compare that to use in New Zealand when you're getting stats from other countries? That alone puts it in this real kind of awkward figure. Are you going to get stats from Zimbabwe or something and then kind of compare it to New Zealand? We're total different countries in that. New Zealand's only just popped up semi-recently. I mean, vaping's been here for a while, but now, you know, with the way that tobacco control and everything's going on, it's popping off a hell of a lot more. So, you know, that's like a different story when it comes to like now, our day and age at the moment. But when you're going back to 2007, research starts coming out at like 2008, 2009. How the hell were they supposed to have a survey with some stats and stuff of the teen uptake in 2007 when research really started in 2008 and 2009? And even when the links to these forms of research or these forms of surveys and stuff, I didn't come across anything that was related to teens use. It was more just about vaping in general, things to do with propylene glycol, vaporizing, vaping in general. You know, it's kind of like a new technology in the States and stuff, and we're a hell of a lot behind than what it is in the States and what's going on over there. So that alone, it just confuses the whole situation on where they're actually getting these stats from. Now, I've got an interesting point to share with you guys. Now, one interesting point to bring up with all you guys is the survey of these 2,700 year 10 students is that most of them are stacked in the ethnicity or the ethnical group of the lower socio-economical part of our country. Now, people in the lower portions of society, far more stressed, more smokers. We can easily see that in the stats. So, you know, when it comes to vaping and vape use and experimentation, that's another big thing that we need to look at. The whole experimenting does not necessarily mean that the everyday users. We need to always remember that experimentation is a normal teen thing that kind of goes on. I mean, you get your kiss the first time you have consensual sex, the first time you drink, the first time you try illicit substances. It's all in this teenage bracket. So being in, you know, the more stressed part of society, things when you're hungry, you know, bills aren't paid, parents are arguing, all these kinds of things that just affects the whole world in general, you're going to be more susceptible to trying new substances or anything like that. So when it's stacked in an disproportionate way, you're going to see inflation in different types of results as far as surveys and that go. Now, when we're actually looking at this group as a collective, one of the members over on the AVCA group, on the AVCA public forum, dissected the results as far as the percentages go. Now, there is also an inflation in the figures. Now, once all the figures are collected as far as a percentage goes, it seems to be that they tallied out a total of 108%. How do you get 108% of a collective group that you study? It only goes up to 100%. Now, whoever has calculated all of this and whoever has put this whole thing together as far as a survey goes, I don't really think that they summarized it correctly or they really knew what they were talking about. So kudos to them. You know, you really stuffed it up, and that's a real fast way to kind of avoid any kind of figures and stuff when it comes to these types of, you know, topical discussions. And now we go into a point that I want to talk about a little bit later in this video, and that goes as far as the smoking numbers of teens in New Zealand. So the Ministry of Health put out some figures, and they came back and they said that we have the lowest smoking figures that we've ever seen. The lowest smoking figures we've ever seen, with the average smoker being around 14.8 years of age. But we've got the lowest figures that we can ever see. Now, you know, there could be a lot of factors in this, tobacco control, there could be the rise of vaping and stuff, but we've got to be proud of that in New Zealand, that we're finally seeing something that could be a new generation of never smokers, and that's something that we really need to, you know, focus on, and we need to keep our attention based, that when it comes to vaping and stuff, it's definitely harm reduction. We always need to preach it's a harm reduction method, and that's really what we're trying to do as far as giving accessibility to the wider New Zealand.
It's illegal for under 18s to buy them, but the market is unregulated.
They're sold in outlets like dairies and convenience stores, and we know that these are stores that children and young people frequent.
Cosmic Corner's been selling e-cigarettes for 5 years. They say they take ID checks seriously.
We also work with courier posts to make sure that all our online sales are ID checked when they're collected.
The previous government was on track to bring in new rules around advertising and restrictions on sales, but the current government put a stop to that, instead having a review. One News has been trying for days to talk to the Associate Health Minister, Jenny Salisa, about this, but she was unavailable. There's now criticism the government's moving too slowly.
We've suddenly let this massive market creep happen out there without any regulations really around it, or any concern about how youth might be taking it up.
This is important that we pass regulations. At the moment, e-cigarettes and vaping are totally unregulated.
So now they bring up the fact about regulations, legislation and everything like that. And it's kind of portrayed in the way on TVNZ that we don't want them. Like, we're happy there's no regulations or legislations. We have been begging for a very long time. Please hurry up and legislate it. Put regulations in place for the safety of vapors out there. You can't keep having people that are selling vapes and vaping products and vaping accessories. They've got zero knowledge. It's easier if they stay well clear. You're rather all cards in if you're going to be providing the service of this life-changing technology to the wider public of New Zealand. You got to be on the ball, you know, or get out of the industry and stuff. Or the typical saying like, oh no, it's unregulated, you know, like as if there's some wild west going on out there and things are all crazy and stuff. We have been asking for this for a long time, and we are still working towards it.
The Ministry of Health says e-cigarettes may help the country reach its goal of smoke-free 2025.
But it would be a tragedy to get to 2025 to discover that we'd recruited a new generation of young people who are addicted to a nicotine product.
Fears e-cigarettes pose their own threat. May here in One News.
Okay, so that was the end of the section. So now we get into my viewpoints, and I pretty much tried to put my little 5 cents in each little section of that video, which is a short one, but there's so much stuff that they crammed in there. You know, there's things like experimentation, ever used, using regularly, using monthly, bi-monthly, you know, anything like that. Experimentation is typically what teens do. Anybody who's an adult, they've experimented in something. That's kind of how you learn to mingle out in the wider tribe. These things like peer pressures and that. You know, stuff like, have you ever used a vape or an e-cigarette once? Somebody managed to steal their mum's one or their parents' one or anything like that. They take it to a party, they pass it around. There's 10 people that have already tried it. It's what teens do, you know, parties where they're all smoking substances and they're all drinking and everything like that, you know. It's just kind of what goes on. I think a lot of people, they don't actually realize that teenagers are having sex these days. There was an interesting comment that I saw on the AVCA page, and I really cracked up on that, and it's so damn true. It's just what teenagers do. Now, to share my experience, what we did is before we opened our doors to our town fielding, what we did is we went down, we had a meeting with the deputy principal at the high school and stuff. So I wanted to establish a line of communication so that if anything happens or he, you know, something goes on to do with vaping and that, he communicates with me. I thought he wanted to really attack me or the whole vaping thing in general, but he was more interested in the health effects and that. So I brought out a few points to him, which he learned straight away. He switched. He didn't really get what vaping was. What is this phenomenon and stuff? You know, it's kind of new to a few people's ears and that. And we basically talked about the health effects, how it's helped so many people transition over and, you know, bring up a less harmful method to their body because they were smoking anyway. And that he didn't actually realize that it was a harm reduction method. You know, it's a way of just lessening the damage that we're doing to ourselves and stuff. And you got tobacco control. There's things to do with you know, tax increases on cigarettes. You know, people are doing it hard out there in that. And we spoke for maybe an hour or an hour and a half on that. So when I said to him, how many teens in your school are vaping, and he acknowledged it. He said that there's, you know, a number of them that have been vaping or have been caught vaping and stuff. So I said to him, this is the interesting point when we go back to the figures of the lowest that teenage smoking's been in New Zealand. So I said to him, okay, how many teenagers have you caught smoking? And by this way, we were a term or so into the year. And he said, this year, none. None. They didn't got any teenagers smoking. And I said, well, what you're seeing is the same at-risk youth, the same at-risk youth that would have otherwise smoked have switched over. You know, they're the same kids that were going to smoke anyway. I remember when I was at school, we were all smoking. Everybody was smoking at school. I had my first cigarette when I was 9 years old. It's what you do. You experiment as a kid. So when he finally clicked, like, shit, we haven't actually caught anyone smoking, and said that, you know, they picked up a vape and stuff. And then I said to him, well, my thing is that I don't want these kids getting any vapes, especially from us. I don't want them coming into my store. We've got our firm policies in place. It's an R18 store, you know, it's just a given. And then he said, like, yeah, man, that's cool. And then I said, well, how do you think these kids are getting their vapes? And he said, clearly, it's their parents. He said to the point that parents were attacking them for taking vapes off kids and stuff. And the parents were coming in, older siblings and stuff, they were providing the accessibility. I don't know any vendors out there or anyone that I speak to that just openly starts slanging vapes and liquid and everything to anybody that's underage and stuff. And he acknowledged himself. He said the parents are doing it. The parents are getting it for their kids. They don't want their kids to smoke, so they want to give them something that is nicotine by itself. You know, that's a whole nother topic when we're talking about addiction and everything like that. But you know for a fact, by the time you finish your first packet of cigarettes, it's almost game over in that. And the parents don't want to see their kids go down that route. So, you know, a parent being a parent, you're trying to do the best that you can, and they buy their kid a vape and stuff. So that's just my little experience that we had with the high school and stuff. And I hope you guys enjoyed this video of my humble opinion on the issue. Now, what I'm going to do is, like I said, I'm going to share all the links down in the description. I hope you guys can read through it. If you haven't already, follow the link in the description, which goes over to the AVCA public forum. Please get amongst it. You know, this stuff's only going to ramp up. This is one thing. You know, we saw a while back when it came to the project on TV, it was enough for the community to get behind issues like that. It was enough for them to change the whole section of the video. They addressed it the next day. These are things that we can actually move mountains in our own community if we get out there and we get amongst it. So definitely share your guys' opinion. We're all entitled to our own opinion. Nobody's right or wrong when it comes to these types of topics. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to chuck you guys up a cloud. Don't forget to like, comment, share, subscribe, hit the notification button so you can see when the next video is coming out. And as always, keep it cloudy, fam.